I would be mistaken to not bring this back up and ask you. We brought it up yesterday, and we talked very briefly. You were able to sit on it maybe for 24 hours. Just your thoughts of Oregon and Dan Lanning 2-year agreement.
I mean,
extension.
I'm fired up, man. I think it's the synergy in the athletic department and with Lanning and his vision for where everything is going. I'll give credit to our guy Andrew Nimick, who was on the air last night with recruiting with Andrew Nimick. I thought he had a really good point, and it's a point that doesn't get brought up enough that I try and hammer home. And I remember doing it even in the aftermath of the heartbreaking loss and the devastating and embarrassing loss to Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. The last time Oregon had a coach who was here for longer than 4 years was Mike Bellotti. That's a long time ago. Mike Bellotti has not been the head coach in quite some time for those keeping track at home. He's going to go into year 4 next year. If he's here the year after that, he will be the longest tenured head coach since Mike Bellotti, and that will be in 2026, nearly 20 years later. A lot of four and dones, one and done, some quick turnarounds. And so Nimick hit it on the head, and it's something that I've argued, and that is what the further message that this sends to the college football world and mainly to the recruiting world is stability. It's that I'm not going anywhere. And I think there's a fear for a lot of kids that I don't know if this coach is going to be around in 2 years. I don't know what the landscape's going to look like. Is this guy going to bounce for another job? There's not a lot of guarantees. And I think Lanning has continued to tell you year in and year out, I'm not going anywhere. The grass is damn green, whether he was offered jobs or not. I don't plan on going anywhere, and now we're restructuring a contract, and he's one of the 5 highest-paid coaches in the country. The stability is huge. He has had the ability now. The upcoming recruiting class is 2026. He has been at Oregon for 3 years, so he's recruited these guys as the head coach at Oregon since they were sophomores in high school, which is really when the recruiting process begins for high school kids. And right now, depending on the metrics, Oregon has the number 1 or number 2 recruiting class in the country in 2026. They're on the brink of potentially adding 2 more 5-stars this weekend to that class, and maybe the number 1 overall quarterback in the country. The stability is huge, and this further legitimizes that he's not going anywhere.
Well, I was thinking about this and reading some of the stuff on him agreeing to the 2-year extension, which will get him roughly around $11 million per year and finally make him a top 8 paid coach in the sport.
Yep.
You look around the landscape of that and just like how many jobs even exist on the radar that are interesting to leave Oregon for. And again, I know Oregon hasn't won the Natty, and Beaver fan will highlight like how they come up short in the big one, whatever. But like where they're at right now in recruiting, winning the Big Ten in year 1, having a undefeated season until you got to the playoff against Ohio State that turned into a buzzsaw. You look around and you're like, can you name 3 jobs? I can't. Why is Kirby Smart's not going anywhere?
No, he's not.
Sarkisian signed an extension.
If he goes anywhere, just be the NFL. It's because he's done what he wants to go try his hat in the NFL.
There's no intel that he's maybe he will. Maybe he'll Nick Saban the situation, but he's got the best thing going to college.
Everything he
Georgia.
Needs to succeed at Georgia.
He's a king. He's a tastemaker in Athens. The guy's a god for God's sakes. Sark at Texas got an extension.
Yeah, you throw Ohio State in there, you throw Texas in there. I mean, you're in that category.
You
now.
can maybe circle Bama and say that's it, but Day doesn't appear to be going anywhere despite the death threats and how ridiculous those fans are at Ohio State. Michigan just reset, and they got the number 1 quarterback coming in this year. You just kind of play the blue blood game, and you can't really name any. Why would you leave Oregon for USC? I wouldn't.
No.
Not the way it's going right now. I didn't care about USC offering me a lot of money. So you look around, and it's not just that like he might be here the longest post-Bellotti. It's that now he's also being compensated the way that he's been kind of performing. You can debate with a wall for me about his lack of success in the playoff. Yeah, well, what is his record? 35-6?
35-6 in 3 years, and 4 of the 6 teams he lost to either played for or won the national championship.
And he seemingly is in the top 7 of recruiting every year. He's in the conversation for number 1. He might get the number 1 quarterback in 2026. With all of what is happening there, he's in his 30s still.
He's a young guy.
Devoted, doesn't make excuses. I just don't think you can even find jobs that should be, frightening Duck fan. You could always throw Miami. And, there was one time where it was like he declined Miami, and you went, yeah, he's not going to go home. He wants to stay in Eugene. And then Miami came back, and they were like, oh, my God, he's leaving us for Miami. Chip, to me, always smelled like a short-term thing, and Duck fan didn't agree with my takes back in that day, but it proved to be right. Helfrich was not a real thing to me. And Willie Taggart, I just never really trusted all that much. And
Didn't
it
even
was
get
like,
to know the guy, dude. He was here for like 9 months.
He's swag surfing. Yeah, and he's 7-5. What are you buzzing about? So like,
why wouldn't I be the coach at Oregon?
You really haven't had one, I think, that quite meets this criteria. And then also, it's kind of shaped up for now to say there's nothing on the radar. He's what, from Kansas City, is he not?
Yeah.
And
I don't know if he's from the area of Kansas City.
He's got tattoos of 4 other colleges on his body. He's not devoted to one. There's not some powerful alum backing the way Mario had Miami. It's like
William Jewell College. I don't think he's going to be able to afford Dan Lanning.
Yeah, the
I don't
entire
think they can
university
afford the
budget.
$20 million buyout.
So like, there's kind of this really good mix, I think, for them of saying he's earned the pay raise, no doubt. You're feeling good despite how it ended on the one game at the end of the year. And there's nothing that's frightening you the way that there have been with other ones in the past.
To that point, I think we already kind of knew what the roadmap was for Dan Lanning even before this extension or new deal, whatever amended deal you want to call it, is signed. And that was, I believe, right here on 1080 The Fan on primetime. Isaac and Suk were asking him, around the Alabama rumors coming out, and obviously before Kalen DeBoer took the job. I think he said, talking about his roots in Kansas City, like the one dream job of his would be like the Kansas City Chiefs job. That's probably not going to be open for another 5-6 seasons. I would assume he's here at Oregon until 2030. Maybe you're looking at that point, the elite job in the NFL, the Kansas City Chiefs job opening up. And if he's had the success that, any NFL team, they'd probably already want to grab him, but any NFL team that sees him winning a championship or two here would immediately hire him and pay him $20 million. But I'd say that's happening in 2030. But it will happen.
That's the thing about it, I think, for me, is like you can highlight Kansas City because I remember him saying that, Schultz. But is it you don't want to be the guy after the guy? Like Reed said, he's going to come back next year, and then I think it's just going to be a Kevin Durant 1-year thing every year. Like, oh, we'll see, and then it's like I'm coming back, and then we'll see, I'm coming back. So it might be a year or two.
I also love Dan Lanning. I don't know if he's the top of Kansas City's big board when Andy Reid does step away.
Well,
they might not want to go hire a college coach. We have no idea.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's true.
I think that's the thing is, does the NFL scare you more than any other college gig?
Yes, the NFL is what's the only thing that scares me at this
that's
point.
That's the thing that scares you.
There's not another college job that could open up that would scare me at this point. I think he's smart enough to understand that this is a process. It's a building process. He's been a part of these. He was a part of it at Alabama. He was a part of it at Georgia. And the stat that I throw out there all the time he hasn't won a big one, like Kirby Smart, it took him 6 years at Georgia to win a national title. That'd be 3 more years for Dan Lanning in Eugene before he wins a national championship. It took Dabo like 8 or 9 years. It took Ryan Day 6 or 7 years. It takes time to do this. You have to continue to build, continue to give yourself chances, keep upgrading, keep finding where your weaknesses are. There's a process to it. And so he seems like the kind of guy who is dead set on doing it in Eugene. And those are famous last words, but I have not felt this confidently about a coach not leaving anytime soon in a long time than I feel about Dan Lanning.
And final point on this I would make, because we're against it. I think the underrated part, I know he has moved around a little bit from what his resume says. His kids, and I say this as somebody who's in a similar situation, my kids are at a spot now that even if I ever wanted to live in a different city, I don't know if I really have an option because I'm going to get out-voiced in my own house. My kids are not at an age where they want to make new friends and go to new school. And
it's middle school, high school kind of territory you're encroaching on.
You have to make the best decision that's for your family, and sometimes kids have to just kind of adjust, right? So it's not an impossibility. I kind of just think he strikes me, and he has sounded like a guy that doesn't want, at this point of his kids' lives, to move them around to different schools. Not the coaches haven't, but
no,
he's really come off at least of, if I ever do leave, and he says Oregon's his job forever, which we know, that's coach speak, but if the NFL ever does come calling in 6 years, the kids are out of high school. The kids are off and they're doing their thing, and it's like, okay, Dad has already got a lot of time to work, but he's got a little more time, and you're adults now. He just strikes me as doesn't want to move at this point. And some of that is maybe family related.
Yeah, very well could be. It's not easy to move those kids when they're that age.
It's not fun.
No.
You hear about it from the kids. They complain about it.
The last thing on this, if I've joked about this for the last 2 to 3 years. If you were designing a system for college football and how it should work, and you said, hey, Phil Knight, Oregon, how do you want the system to look that benefits you the most? This is the system that they would draw up. So why would you walk away from that?
I don't know.
He's got every resource he needs to win. It's not
He
easy to
does.
recruit because there's not a lot of blue chip guys within 5 miles of your school, like maybe there is in New Orleans or Georgia or Atlanta or wherever. So that's the one difficulty of it, but he's got every resource he needs to win.